Howdy Beans, and welcome back to another exciting, happy and love-filled episode of the Howdy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Luke, the Bean of Love. Thank you very much for joining me today. Before we get into today's topic, I'm going to do with housekeeping because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So make sure that you follow me on X at howdybeans_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And finally, if you listen to this on Spotify, on your mobile phone, don't forget to rate the podcast 5 stars. You can also find the Howdy Beans podcast on all podcasting platforms. I'm even on Apple Podcasts and I'm on Good Pods. So if you want to find me there, you can. So first of all, before we get into today's topic, happy Valentine's Day. If I've scheduled this correctly, it should be coming out on actual Valentine's Day itself. I'm not a big celebrator of Valentine's Day. I'm mostly single for majority of Valentine's Days. But, you know, I wanted to talk about a movie for Valentine's Day that was also nerdy, nostalgic, but also absolutely incredible. And I feel like today's topic is that in spades. It is About Time from 2013. Oh, I love this film. I really, really do. I don't want to jump into the memories part yet. I'm going to do the synopsis first, then we'll jump into the memories, because otherwise I'm going to be here, there, and everywhere, and it's going to be a bit crazy. So, for the movie synopsis. When Tim Lake is 21, his father tells him a secret. The men in their family can travel through time. Although he can't change history, Tim resolves to improve his life by getting a girlfriend. He meets Mary, falls in love, and finally wins her heart via time travel and a little cunning. However, as his unusual life progresses, Tim finds that his special ability can't shield him and those he loves from the problems of ordinary life. So that is the synopsis. As for my memories and love and joy about this film, as you can tell, I'm oozing with such emotion about this movie. Now, I'll be honest, and I'll put my hand up and say that I have only recently watched this movie. And when I say recently, I would say around the end of October, beginning of November of last year, 2024. It's been on my list for absolutely donkeys, to be honest. It's a movie that I've been wanting to watch for a long time and never got around to it. And then I got a notification on Netflix last year saying, oh, these movies that are on your wish list are going to be disappearing soon. And right to the top was About Time. And I think it went off Netflix on the 7th of November. And so I was just like, well, I've got nothing to do. I'm going to sit and watch it. And I was absolutely floored. This movie is funny. It's clever. It is witty. It is heartfelt, it's beautiful, it's everything you want from a movie like this. And I figured I figured it's just one of their movies that it just will stick with me forever. And it did. Around Christmas time, I actually sat and watched it again. And I was in tears. The tears flowed as much as they did when I first watched it. And I actually had a thought around about the beginning of this year in January. I was at work. I was just milling about, cleaning up, and I thought to myself, I was thinking of topics to do. I was thinking of like, well, what can I do for the podcast in February? Well, Valentine's Day is in February, and I thought, well, what can I do for Valentine's Day? I'm not really big on the actual sort of celebration itself. I don't really celebrate myself, but I should do a topic for it. It should be interesting to see if we can look into any sort of romance or rom-com sort of films. And then I thought to myself, well, hold on a second. I watched About Time recently. I've watched it twice and it blew me away each time. And it's got a time travel aspect in it. And it does time travel in a very clever and smart way. It has fun with it, but it's also heartfelt and full of love. And it's just a movie that, you know, is right for the picking for me to really delve into. So that's what I'm here today, really. And we're talking about Time because it is about time I get around to talking about it. It was about time that I get around to watching it. And it's about time that I share my thoughts and feelings with this wonderful movie with you all. So, as for the cast, so you've got Donald Gleason, who plays Tim, Rachel McAdams as Mary. You've got Bill Knightley as the dad. Bill Knightley, I will put my hands again. I'm putting my hands up again. I'm putting them up twice now. You know, 2 hands in the air. Bill Knightley is one of the most cherished and underrated British actors there is. Like, honestly, like every time he's in a movie, no matter what the movie is, if he's in it, you know his part is going to be ace. He's going to be incredible. Even in small parts, like if you ever watched Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and he plays the salesman, it's memorable because even though he's only in it at the end of the movie, you remember him, and he's just one of these actors that every time he appears, you know you're going to have a brilliant time because he's just a brilliant actor. And he was in Doctor Who as well, and he actually has one of the most emotional scenes in Doctor Who. And it's not actually him getting emotional; it's just how he talks about Vincent Van Gogh. And sorry, I want to have a bit of thing there, but I just love Bill Knightley. Anyway, so we got Linda Wilson as Kit Kat, Lindsay Duncan as Mum, Richard Cordery as Uncle D, Josh Maguire as Rory, Tom Hollander as Harry. Margot Robbie is in this movie, which was a surprise to me because I didn't know she'd be in a film like this. But Margot Robbie's in it. She plays Charlotte. Will Merrick as Jay. Vanessa Kirby as Joanna. Tom Hughes as Jimmy Kincaid. Clement Amdugal as Ginger Jerry. Harry Haddad Patton as Rupert. Mitchell Mullen as Mary's father. Lisa Etchehorn as Mary's mother, Jerry Rainsford as Polly, and Natasha Powell as Aunt Mary. That is the cast. To be honest, it is such a stat cast. Like, everybody in this movie has memorable moments. Everybody in this movie you remember. It's not like most films where you only really remember the main sort of characters. But in this, you not just only remember the main characters, but you remember every single side character. Everybody is unique. And the whole point of this movie is to kind of, if you take the time travel idea out of it, if you just run the idea of it's a story about a guy living a mundane, human, ordinary life, a life that we all live every single day, right? You're going to meet characters. Everybody you meet, every human you meet is a character, is a different person. You meet some people that are very happy, full of joy, full of optimism, and you meet people that are a bit sad, a bit depressive, or you meet people that are very sort of angry. Like, for example, Tom Hollander's character, Harry, he is a playwright, and his wife's left him, his daughter's left him, he's very down in his dumps, he hates life, to be honest, but he's a very talented play writer. But again, when Tim first meets him, he's a dick to him, basically. And he is through the story, but he's a lovable dick. And I know it sounds weird to say, but it's true. And again, Rory, by Joshua, same sort of thing. He's very happy, naive. He's been at this law firm for about a year. Nobody knows his names. He's very forgettable. But Tim works with him and gets a bit of a friendship with him. And he still says something, but again, he's still very memorable. Linda, who plays Kit Kat, again, very memorable character, very strange, very weird, but she's also a very wonderful character as well. And there's also a bit of a subplot that goes on with her. And every single character you remember, there's not a single character that's wasted. There's not a single line of dialogue that's wasted. Every ounce of screen time, whoever's in it is doing their 100% best. And what makes this movie just feel more real, more honest, more alive, more beautiful, to be honest. Absolutely stunning. As sort of moving on to the sort of the production, so by Curtis's own admission, Curtis being Richard Curtis, the director and writer of this movie, by Curtis's own admission, the conception of the idea was a slow growth. The genesis of the idea came when Curtis was eating lunch with a friend and the subject of happiness came up. Upon admitting he was not truly happy in life, the conversation turned towards him describing an ideal day. From here, Curtis realized that the day of the lunch, for him, constituted such a day, which led to him deciding to write a film about how you achieve happiness in ordinary life. Thinking that the concept was a bit too simple, he decided to add a time travel element to the film. Although the production contracted out various effects houses to try to make the time traveling effects feel like more of a spectacle, they found the resulting just completely wrong. Tonally and focused on a more low-key approach. Curtis has opted that in the end, it turns out to be a kind of anti-time travel movie. It uses all the time travel stuff, but without it feeling like it's a science fiction thing, particularly, or without it feeling that time travel can actually solve your life. Curtis is primarily known as a screenwriter, and About Time was only his third ever film as a director, plus one television short. He said the film was likely to be his last film as director, but that he will continue in the film industry. One other bit of tidbit here. Zuni Deschanel, from New Girl sort of fame, has been in talks for the role of Mary, but ultimately the role went to McAdams. Again, Zuni would have done a fantastic job. Zuni is an incredible, again, underrated actress. But I think Rachel McAdams in this film does a brilliant job. For anybody who's interested in the filmography of Richard Curtis, he wrote and directed Love Actually. He wrote and directed and executively produced The Boat That Rocked, which is actually, funny enough, was a movie I've been talking about a lot recently with other podcasters randomly, not planning on looking into it, but we were just talking about movies that nobody talks about anymore. And this was the movie that I said, and it's just interesting that I'm going to talk about this movie and it comes up again. Maybe it's the universe telling me that I need to do a review about The Boat That Rocked. I haven't seen it in years since it came out. Bill Knightley's in that film as well. Maybe I will give a look into it. Anyway, he was a director, writer, and executive producer on that. And the last film that he was he was a director, I combined director and writer together. So I'm really full of joy and happiness at the moment. But I'm going to leave that in because it's funny. Anyway, so he was the director, writer, and executive producer on About Time, and that was the last film that he did. And from there, he did Trash, he did Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, Yesterday, Genie, and That Christmas. All of those ones he was just the writer on. As well, he's done other television stuff, like he's creator and writer of Blackadder, creator, writer, Mr. Bean, creative writer, Vicar Dibley, creative writer and executive producer of Robbie the Reindeer, and creative writer and executive producer on the Number One Ladies Detective Agency. And he was a writer on Doctor Who. And yeah, like the guy, again, he is an absolute talent. And this movie just oozes with genius, with talent. I do love it. Like, there's not much more I can really say about it without actually going into the actual movie review itself. But I do, like, considering I've only ever seen this movie twice, and I'm going to watch it for a third time in a minute for the review, it's still a film that stuck with me. I still remember every single thing. From the beginning to the end, I remember every single story beat. And it's so telling of a movie that's so powerful that you don't even have to watch it once or twice to really remember everything. Most movies nowadays, can you say on count on your fingers how many movies that you've seen that you've only seen once or twice that you can basically remember the whole story? You can remember all the side characters, you can remember all the plot, all the side plots, everything that's going on. I don't know many films, for me personally, where I can think like that, but this is one of them. This is one of those films where I'm like, it blew me away. It had me in tears. It was glorious. It was funny. It was clever. And like, as it said in the production notes, like, they tried at first to do the whole time travel thing, to do big effects and stuff like that. But you know what works? The whole point of the story is to tell a story of a mundane life. So why don't you make the time travel aspect of it mundane as well? And they do, and it works. All Tim has to do is go into a cupboard or some sort of dark room, close his eyes, clench his fists, and then think of the time he wants to go back to, and that's it. It's as simple as that. That is the time travel element, basically. There's no machine. There's no big sort of like flash, sort of like big bang or anything like that. There's nothing like that. It's the most simple, mundane concept of time travel. Just the fact of go in a dark room, close your eyes, clench your fist, boom. That's it. Done. And it works perfectly. And I feel like if they would have gone with like a huge, spectacular way of time traveling, it wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have worked for the tone of the film. But I'm going into review mode already. I don't want to do that. I'm going to cut myself off, like zip off, and I'm going to go watch this movie. And then when I'm back, I'm going to share all my thoughts and isms about this absolutely wonderful film. So I will see you all in a minute. And welcome back, everybody. I've just finished watching this movie About Time, and um, I have a bit of a funny, sort of sad, interesting story to tell before I begin. Um, I put this movie on, and I was on my own. I was just watching it, enjoying it for what it was, and then my mum come home, and she brought my aunt, and my aunt started to watch it about halfway through, and she was telling me, what kind of film is this? What's it about? And I explained it to her about the idea that, this lad Tim, and all the lads in the family, they can go back in time, and that he basically decides, he wants to go back in time and use this power to find love, to find the love of his life. Um, and she said, "Oh, that's nice." And then she turned to me and she said, "Look, if you could go back in time, what would you do?" And it's it's an interesting question because it's not a question you can just answer outright. Because to me personally, anyway, it's a question and an answer that always changes. When I was younger, it was it was knowledge. It was wanting to learn more. And as I got older, it changed to wanting to do different things, meet different people, and then at one stage it was love, and it wanted to go back in time, like Tim, to change things where I've messed up and stuff like that to find true love. And then at another stage, it was about wanting to meet people that had passed away and that died, and that I can no longer see or talk to again. So I'm getting emotional now. I do apologize, but it's one of those where now asking me this question now, honestly, what it comes down to be honest, if I could go back in time, would be to just be happy. Not that I'm not happy now. I am really happy. Where my life has gotten to at this point. I am incredibly happy and grateful for all the things that I have and I'm currently doing. But sorry, trying not to get as emotional. But yeah, if I could go back in time, it would just to be happy. And also to do what Bill Knightley's character does in this movie, which when Tim asked him what did he do with his with this ability, he goes books upon books upon books. I read every single book a person could read, and twice. Charles Dickens 3 times. I'd probably do that. I'd probably read a book and then go back in time, go back to a bookstore, pick out another book, read that, go back in time, do it again, another one. Yeah, I just feel like I couldn't really answer the question at the time, but yeah, I just feel like for me, it's just to be happy, and I think that's what all we ask for, and that's kind of the point. Again, I'm trying to get emotional, but you can probably tell in my voice it's already there. I do apologize. But I just think that's the point of this film, to be honest. It's to sorry. It's to be happy. It's to like he says at the end of the movie, it's to live each day as if you've already done it, to look around, to see everything, to experience everything, to love and feel everything around you, and I just find that very, very beautiful. To be honest, God's sake, this movie is very beautiful. It's very wonderful. It's a movie that does mean a lot to me. To be honest, it's a film that it's just every time I watch it, it just makes me happy. It makes me sad. It makes me cry. It's just a powerful movie, just a really strong film. You can tell in my voice. I'm trying to not be as emotional. I'm trying to bring myself back to reality. There goes gravity. I'm trying to liven it up. I'm trying not to be so it's down and depressive. But it's difficult when you talk about a film like this that has such a powerful message and point. It's hard not to get emotional over it. To be honest, to be like this, men cry. It happens, and when you get a film like this, just yeah. So as you can tell, first impressions, it's had a profound effect on me. You think this is bad, Um, you should have seen me when I first watched it. When I first watched this movie, I was in tears. It's like it. Best way I can explain it, it's like when I watch Amelie for the first time. Anybody who doesn't know, that is my all-time favorite film. It means the world to me. And when I first watched that film, I was just destroyed. It changed my life. I fell in love, God's sake, and it was just a film that I go back to all the time. And when I watch this movie, I've got all those emotions come back, and maybe it wasn't a good idea to watch this film and then to record my feelings afterwards. But I feel like this is genuine. This is honest. This is me being open and sharing how a film can impact a person. But I'm going to try and get my sort of faculties together so that I can be a bit of coercive and a bit sort of, well, I don't know, to be honest, I can be a bit more sort of, coherent and, get this review done before I sort of get my tears out. But yeah, as you can tell, first impressions, it's had a huge, profound effect on me. As for the story, as I explained, Tim, he basically, he's just, it is the story of an average, mundane bloke, Tim. The most average name. If your name's Tim, I do apologise. But it's like Dave or John. The very average sort of name. But the point is, that's to really sort of phone home the idea that he lives a normal, average life. His family's a bit quirky, a bit weird, but whose family isn't? At the end of the day, we've all got weird aunts and uncles and relatives. I know I do. Anyway, I'm one of them. But it's to convey the idea that the mundane, the normal, just living life. And then one day when he turns 21, after a terrible hangover and an absolutely awkward night at the annual family New Year's Eve party, he meets he goes to talk to his dad, and his dad basically lays it on to him as like, look, son, all the men in our family can time travel. And Tim obviously doesn't believe him at first, and he's like, look, go find a dark space, close your eyes, clench your fists, and then think about where you want to go, and you will find yourself there. So he's like, all right, Dad, you crazy bugger. So, he goes, tries it. Next thing you know, he's back in the night before, and he fixes some of his mistakes. And instead of hugging the girl at the end of the night, he gives her a huge kiss, and he makes her day, and changes her life. And she has a big smile on her face, And then he comes back to his dad, and he's like, wow. And he's like, his dad's giving him the rules of like, don't worry about the butterfly effect. We've been doing it for generations, and so far we haven't screwed up the world. Don't go looking for money because it will ruin your life. His dad goes like, look what happened to your Uncle Harold. The most miserable man he ever met. He had no friends. Nobody loved him. Nobody cared about him. Blah blah blah. So if you're going to use this power, use it for something good. And obviously then Tim asks like what his dad does, and his dad goes, look, I read books, and that was it. That's what I decided to do. I retired at 50, and I've just been reading every single book. And there are many moments as a bibliophile that I've paused that scene in that office, and I have looked at a lot of the books on the shelves, and I actually own majority of the books on the shelves, not all of them. I own the editions of Lord of the Rings that he has. I've got some of the other books. There's Terry Pratchett on there as well. There's loads of authors I haven't experienced, but that's what I would do, to be honest. Again, I won't lie. I would look for love, and I'd look for ways to kind of make things better, a little bit better than they are, again, because we're all human, we're all fallible, we're all going to make mistakes. If we have a really sort of shitty day, we go back in time and go, what, how can I make this day less shit? So we're all human at the end of the day. We'd all make these sort of choices. I'm not saying that I wouldn't, but yeah, I think I would. I'd just choose it to read loads of books. But when Tim decides, he goes, well, I want it to help me to find a girlfriend. I want it to help me to find love. And his dad's like, oh, okay, I guess. And I love this movie for watching it multiple times, because it's one of those movies that you have to watch multiple times, because when you watch it once, you experience the story through Tim, right? But if you watch it a second time and a third time and a fourth time and a fifth and sixth, 7 billionth time, you watch the movie through his dad's eyes. If every time Bill Knightley, every time, not Bill Nye, sorry, not the science guy, but every time Bill Knightley's in the background, every time Tim's dad is there, whatever Tim's doing, just watch Bill in the background, his dad, and you see, there's moments where he smiles when he knows what he's done. He knows he's gone back in time and changed it. He knows, like, he watches him. Like, there was a moment where Margot Robbie comes in the store, and obviously she's drop dead gorgeous, and Tim's absolutely in love with her because, again, he's only human. And she says to him, like, Tim, do you want to put some cream on my back? And he's like, oh, yeah, sure, sun cream. So, here we go. He gets up really sort of eagerly, and he goes to put some on her back, and he accidentally squirts too much, and it goes all over her back, and he goes, oh, no. And his dad's just in the background, like, proper face palm, like, oh, my God, so embarrassing. And then he goes, oh, no. And he runs in. Obviously, then he changes time. And then, obviously, it happens again. Kind of like Groundhog Day. Happens again. And she's like, Tim, do you want to put some lotion on my back? And he's like, yeah, sure. One moment, and he actually cool, finishes his page on his book, closes it, gets up really sort of like nonchalantly, like, oh, I don't really care. It's not a big deal sort of thing. And very cool, calm. And then you just got his dad in the background, kind of like, yeah, go on, son, sort of thing. And there's many moments like that throughout the film, and it's these little things that you notice, and it's the little things you notice that are going on with Kit Kat, his sister, and her life, and how her life, how like his life is going great with he's making all these changes and choices, whereas on the sidelines you've got his sister. And if you pay attention, and especially if you watched it already, if you watch it for the first time, again, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't, but you noticed things that happen with his sister in the second to third viewings that it starts to make more sense. And again, I don't really want to go into detail because I don't want to ruin it, because that's a big key part. And there's a lot of things in this film that I don't want to ruin and spoil. But the story is masterclass. It is. It's wonderful. Like, don't get me wrong, there are, like, for me personally, there are a few moments where I'm sitting there thinking that kind of goes a little bit beyond free will, because it obviously deals with Mary. So Tim meets Mary at a sort of blind sort of restaurant experience, like it's in total blackness. So they just get to know each other through personality, not through looks or anything like that. She gives him his number, all wonderful. He gets back to his mate's house, and his mate goes, look, he's absolutely depressed, really, really sad, Harry. And he basically goes, look, no, I've had the worst night of my life. My play was terrible. It was like the actor just froze on stage, and my career's ruined. So Tim, being, Tim, he tries to go back and help him, and he does. And he realized, because he went back in time to help his friend, he never met Mary. So then he tries his best to go through life to meet her again, which he eventually does. And he's a bit creepy, kind of like, asking the questions, and he kind of forgets, oh God, yeah, we haven't met before. Sorry, I can't really explain how I already know you and all this. And you get for this awkward moment, and he realizes that she's met somebody else, and he's a douche. He's a real tool. And, Tim basically goes, oh, where did you guys meet? What day, what time, where, specifically, location, sort of address, that sort of thing. And this is where it kind of gets to the point of free will, because it feels like at times like he's messing with her life and other people's lives, because he's constantly changing things. Again, the butterfly effect doesn't really exist in this world. There's no real sort of choice. Well, there is choice and consequences, but there's nothing where it's like it changes stuff, but it doesn't change it for the worse. It's kind of the fact of, you don't really see the repercussions of it a lot. It does. It's hard to explain. You do, but you don't. I don't explain it without going into spoiler territory. But either way, it kind of feels like going against her free will, because there are many moments when she could have had one life, and then he goes in, changes it. So instead of meeting that douchey bloke at the party, she meets Tim, and this sort of thing. So I think that's anything that really not bothers me. It's anything that I really would say is a negative. The idea of messing around with free will. And again, the whole idea, if you ever watched the movie The Butterfly Effect, that character in that movie, he realizes that, the choices he makes, it affects other people, sometimes for the best, sometimes for the worst. But it never ends well, really. Well, obviously, that you don't get that in this movie. I think really comes up Tim, or pretty much majority of the story, which then kind of leads to other things. And I can't go into without spoilers, but Yeah, apart from that, I would say the story is incredible. Everything about it is incredible. The characters are incredible. The music is beautiful. Armando. I sat and listened to when I first watched this movie. I sat and listened on repeat the song Armando, by I think Jimmy Fontaine. I think his name was, many times over and over again. And many times I was like, Armando. Italian, 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 Italian. Yeah, I don't know the words. But I would sing along to it anyway. It's a beautiful song. But it's one of those where it's like, it's just stuck in my head now. Yeah, it's a beautiful song. And everything, to be honest, just coming into my overall thoughts now, because I feel like I'm repeating myself. Everything about this movie is gorgeous. It is a heartfelt film. It takes the time travel aspect and really turns it on its head. It makes you really appreciate life. It is one of them. It's one of them movies. It's like a slice of life sort of film, um, where where it kind of teaches you a message, and with this one, it is very much the fact of live each day as if you've already done it. Live each day as if you've already gone back in time to experience it again. Appreciate everything, smell the trees, appreciate those that are around you, smile. People tell, smile at people, tell people that you love them, be nice to everybody, be kind. All these sort of things that a lot of people take for granted. But again, like I said, there's never enough time in life to do everything and to do it again. Sadly, we all can't go into a dark place, clench our fists, close our eyes, and go back in time. And even Tim shows the fact of there are certain things that you just can't go back and change. There are certain times where you go back, and if you change one thing, like this is again, I can't go into details, but you change one thing, and it ends up snowballing and changes a lot of things, to the point of where you can't go back past a certain point. You're kind of stuck. There are certain sort of, shall we say, um, focus points in your timeline, in your life history, that if you go past those points, and you can change things, but what happens after that gets changed completely forever. And again, I wish I could go into detail. I'm trying to think of an example. You could go back in time to help somebody, but because you went back in time to help somebody, you didn't file that report. So that meant you didn't get your promotion, which that means you didn't meet Polly, and because you didn't meet Polly, you didn't have little Georgie and little Stephen, and that means the fact of your life is been changed. If you get what I'm trying to make, I'm trying to use it as an example, and it kind of just teaches you a lesson. The fact of, look, you only get one shot, so live every day as if it was the last. Live every day as if you've done it already, and just love life and experience everything. And like I said, like Amelie, like this film, like loads of other movies like this. When I watched it, it changed my mind. It changed my whole life. It just really made me kind of sit back and go, "Whoa!" Not that I was doing stuff wrong in my life already, but it really focused home of like, yeah, you're right. And sometimes you need that. And this is why I would say this movie is cinema. This is what we go to the cinema for. We go to cinema to experience stories. We go to cinema to experience human emotion, events, either true or non-fiction or non-fiction, to be enthralled, to kind of make us sit there and go, "Whoa, I've just had my whole world change." Whether it's something that you've seen, something you've heard, a quote, and again, all movies are subjective. There might be people who watch this and just don't get it, and that's fine. But for me, About Time is a film that will always hold a special place in my heart, because it is just a masterclass in storytelling, in characters, and it's really taken the idea of time travel and really just spins it on its head and does something different with it. And it's one of those where I really wish the director, Richard Curtis, this wasn't his last movie. I know he's done Love Actually and and other things, and he is a really great, renowned sort of writer. But I would love to see him write and direct another movie. If this is the kind of caliber of film that he can create, and this is he's like, if this is anything, this is like his magnum opus. This is like the last one that he did where he was the writer and director. Then bravo. But I want to sit here and be incredibly greedy and say, no, please do one more. Not that I need one more, but I would like one more. Not specifically with these characters. I just like to see what this writer and director would do again. Um, yeah, it's proper good. So good. And if you haven't watched it, as you can tell from me from this review, it's had a profound effect, and it's one that I don't want to ruin it for anybody. I've only really spoke about the beginning of the film. I haven't gone into any major spoiler details, because you have to experience it. You have to really go into it knowing as little as possible. Like time travel, yes, but there's so much more to it than that. Um, and yeah, it's 2 hours long. Um, but trust me, it's a film that has you just hooked and enthralled. It's a great date night. Like if you listen to this on Valentine's Day, again, thank you. It's a great date night sort of film. I've always said, if you ever go on a date with somebody that you never met before, don't go to the cinema. Reason being, it's a bad idea. It might seem cute and it might seem very sort of romantic and old fashioned. But what's the one thing you can't do at a cinema and you can't do at a library? Talk. Um, and that's kind of the whole point when you first get to meet somebody. So I always say, if you're going to go to cinema, do that on your second date. Your first date should be something in that revolves you around getting to know each other. A workshop, maybe, a workshop having to bake cakes, that sort of thing. Really out of the blue, surprise them with your decision. But yeah, cinema, it's a great idea, but it's doesn't allow you to get to know each other really, unless you both like cinema. Then yeah, but I feel like this, if you've already with somebody or it's your second date, and you haven't watched this movie and you want time together and you want a lovely romantic movie to watch together, this is one of those. It will make you cry, it will make you laugh, and it make you love the ones nearest to you ever more so. So whatever your plans are this Valentine's Day, whether it be watching this movie or it was deciding to, if you're single like me, and you're listening to this, by the time actually when I'll be working the day this episode comes out, to be honest, I'm working Valentine's Day. So I'll be at work. And when I come home, more than likely I will be watching films and just enjoying my day as I do. But whatever you decide to do for Valentine's Day, know that whether you have somebody or you don't, that you are loved, you are cared about. People are always going to be there for you. And that just because it is the one day of the year where it is socially acceptable to tell somebody that you love them, doesn't mean you should wait one day a year. What it should mean is the fact of you should cherish that one day, but show that you that love and affection for somebody every single day until the end of days, really. So yeah, so thank you very, very much for listening to my soppy review of About Time. I'm glad and hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you if you listened to this on Valentine's Day. I really, really appreciate it. If you didn't and you're catching up after Valentine's Day, I hope you had a good Valentine's Day. And yeah, so I've been your host, Luke, the hopeless romantic bean. You've been listening to the Howdy Beans podcast, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Thank you, guys, and bye.